Hello, um, this is Olive Hickmott. So my topic for today is breathing in air, and it's part of the Active in Redbourne set of series of Facebook Lives, and quite a lot of them are to do with exercise. This one's not going to be exercise. This one's going to be about what you can do when you're just sitting in the chair and what you can do to help yourself. I want to talk to you about happy and calm breathing in these troubled times. Breathing is something we all do, but we know surprisingly little about it. Just at the moment, it's worth learning a little bit more. So this is like Breathing 101. I'm here to help you understand a little bit more about your own breathing and those around you. Some very simple information that may benefit some people. I'd like to say really clearly, I am not a medic. I would like to make this really clear. I'm a health coach and I don't have medical qualifications. So if you've got any doubts about what I say, please talk to your doctor about it. And it's also not for COVID-19, although actually I think as time goes by with COVID-19, we might find it's more relevant. But for me, it's not related to it. This talk is just to get you started and to get you some bit of more information that you might like to follow up. So just notice for a minute how you're breathing. You're no doubt sitting down, or you might be standing up, or you might be lying down. Just notice for a couple of seconds how you're breathing without any intention of changing it. You might even look in a mirror and see how you're breathing. See if you can notice what's happening in your chest. And you could also take a video of yourself. You don't have to put it on Facebook to just remind you how you're breathing at a later date. So the first question for you is, are you a nose or a mouth breather? Well, I discovered this question a year ago, and I was absolutely floored. I had no idea there was an alternative. And so somebody said to me, well, what do you think your nose is for? And I went, I don't know. I've never even thought of the question. And so I'm going to introduce you today to nose diaphragmatic breathing. And there is actually lots of different ways to breathe. And you'll find yoga's got some different ways, and there's all sorts of different ways. But I'm just going to introduce you to nose diaphragmatic breathing. And I came across this concept a year ago because I didn't think I was breathing very well. And I discovered I got some physical problems that nobody seemed to know what the problem was. Why was I waking up every morning with a dry mouth? Why had I got some tooth problems? Now, I'm not sort of a spring chicken. So, okay, I can have some tooth problems, but I had some weird things. I had teeth that just disappeared. I also had wobbly legs when I walked, on exertion. And I only had to walk up the staircase at home before I got wobbly legs at the top of the stairs. So I tried those two things, one on the dentist and one on the doctor, and basically got nowhere. And so I started getting interested in this breathing thing. And just to tell you who I followed, I started off with Patrick McGowan's book on Buteyko breathing, which was absolutely illuminating. I'd really recommend it to anybody. Then I worked with with a local practitioner called Jen Tiller. And then I did an international conference on airways, which is a word most people don't consider even relates to health. So if you want to look for some clues as to what you're doing, firstly, you can notice whether you're a nose breather or a mouth breather. But secondly, just notice some other things. Are you anxious? Do you feel dehydrated, especially first thing in the morning? That I hated every morning. Do you get sort of leg ache or feel wobbly when you're walking up the stairs? Do you sigh a lot? Do you yawn a lot? These are all little symptoms that add up to what are you doing with breathing. You might have a blocked nose or a cold or allergies. You might snore. Your partner might well know whether you snore or not. And even worse, you might get into holding your breath at night. And you can't get going in the morning. You wake up and you feel as if you're on another planet. There is a really simple one of a scalloped tongue, which means that all the way around edge of your tongue, you can see the dents of your teeth. I had one of those as well. That's a very typical thing to have if you're a mouth breather. One of the reasons I investigated all of this was that I work with neurodivergent kids who are struggling with one version of learning differences or another, and I've discovered the fact that was known about in America is that about 70% of kids with ADHD are mouth breathers. And I went, my goodness, I've got to tell everybody this. And so you can have wobbly, clumsy kids. When you get older, you sort of tend to work that one out. And if you talk a lot, you can be absolutely exhausted from just talking. So why bother to be a nose breather? There is some really important facts, which I shall just go with you. I'm a great believer in if you tell somebody why they're doing something, they will be more inclined to change their behavior. If you don't tell them why, they're not going to do it. So why should you become a nose breather? Firstly, the air that goes in through your nose is humidified, so it adds it stops you being so dehydrated. If you've got your mouth open, you're going to get more dehydrated. It also warms the back of the nasal passage at the back, warms or cools the air. Now, isn't that clever? So if it's really hot, it'll cool it down before it gets to your lungs. And if it's cold, wet air, then it'll warm it up before it gets to your lungs. I mean, human beings are amazing. It will filter the air because you've got some nasal hairs, hopefully. But what's much more important is that there's a chemical change called nitric oxide. And nitric oxide is generated in the nasal passages at the back of your nose, which I can't get to. And it's extraordinary gas being generated naturally whenever you want it. I believe it was in 1988 that the three guys got a Nobel Prize for Science for discovering what nitric oxide does. And so there's loads and loads of stuff available on what nitric oxide does, but people don't, most people don't know anything about it. And it basically lubricates your channels, so things flow better when they've got nitric oxide attached. And the one in the back of your nose has been known to do all sorts of things like killing off dust mites, killing off inflammation, killing off bugs, all sorts of things. But again, I'm not saying it's connected to COVID-19, although there was a bit of work done on SARS before. The other thing that is most important is breathing through your nose triggers your parasympathetic nervous system, which means that you're more relaxed rather than gasping in air through your mouth. And as I say, nose breathing when at night will make you, it will help you wake up in the morning feeling more bright and alive. And so nose breathing has got all these advantages. And then when you come to breathing out, you've got a different set of things going on. I'll just like to quote you something from Patrick's book, who said, it is logical to breathe only through your nose. Given that primary defense to airborne viruses is the nose and not the mouth, that breathing through your nose can support your body's natural resistance to infection. What could be clearer than that? So let me talk to you about breathing out through your nose, because there are a lot of people who breathe in through their noses and out through their mouths. This is, I mean, everybody must know this. Have you ever blown up balloons? You blow up balloons, you put all that carbon dioxide into the balloon, which is normally quite an effort, so you're really straining to do it, and what happens next? You get a bit wobbly feeling. And what's happening there chemically is that you're reducing the amount of carbon dioxide that's in your body. The carbon dioxide, lacking carbon dioxide running around your blood vessels, stops your red blood cells, I'll say that again, reducing the amount of carbon dioxide that's running around your blood vessels, stops red blood cells clinging onto oxygen. I've said that the wrong way around the second time. If you've got enough carbon dioxide still in your blood vessels, it will stop the red blood vessels clinging onto the oxygen and And what we want to do is to improve our oxygenation. Oxygenation is about oxygen moving from the blood vessels into your cells, your tissues, your muscles, your tendons, your organs, and your brain. So what we have to do is to cling on to enough carbon dioxide to carry on that oxygenation process well. Heavy mouth breathing will give you lightheadedness because you're stopping the oxygenation. Now, oxygenation in your limbs may make you feel, for example, in your legs may make you feel very wobbly. Lack of oxygenation in your legs will make you feel very wobbly. Lack of oxygenation in your brain, this really surprised me, is likely to make you go hyper. And so the best thing to do is to breathe in through your nose and out through your nose, and then you've got a better balance of what's going on. Now, the next bit is, why should you breathe down into your belly? Now, you probably don't know whether you're doing this. The easiest way to check is to lie flat on the bed, put 3 small books on your torso. So you've got one up here, one on your belly, and one sort of at the top of your trousers almost. And just notice as you lie down which ones are moving. Are you breathing in the top of your chest? Are you breathing in the middle? Or are you breathing in the bottom? And your lungs are like bellows. So they open up and they close down again. If you're breathing in the top of your chest, you're going to probably be doing this. Your shoulders are going to be moving. If you're breathing in your belly, I'm still breathing, and you can't hardly see anything happening in the top of my chest. And the third place, being right down into the top of your trousers, means that your diaphragm, and Katie, who was doing the singing session on Tuesday, was talking about your diaphragm. And if your diaphragm's moving up and down, then you're breathing better into the whole of your lung area. And you're really important. When your diaphragm moves up and down, it not only gives you room for your lungs to open, but it also massages, because it's moving up and down right in the middle of you, it's massaging your internal organs. And so you may well hear, when you get your diaphragm moving, you may well hear your belly gurgling, and because what it's doing is massaging all the stuff that needs to happen in your belly. And just as a side effect, it could reduce constipation. So try the 3-book technique and see what you can do with it. You may find people who say, I can't do this. Please, please, please take it gently. It might be all sorts of things. It might be you can't breathe in through your nose. Might be you can't breathe down into your belly. If you had an old medical condition, like adenoids, for example, when they take your adenoids out, and because you've had your nose blocked for ages, then it's a good idea to have a bit of physiotherapy to teach you to nose breathe again. Lots of people, because they've had their noses blocked, have got into the habit of mouth breathing and never got back into the habit of nose breathing. Another thing that can happen is it can be really difficult to move your belly. This one happened to me because I had a couple of operations in that area, and it was really painful. So for the first month, and so you really would be in the habit of not moving your belly because it was just too painful. But when all that is gone, you can get back into diaphragm breathing. And so you might have a current medical condition, or which gets your nose blocked, or you may have an old one. But if they're medical conditions, then do something about them. But if they are just habit, then just start practicing. You can take it really gently. The more you use your nose, the better it works. I found that I actually found it really difficult to read aloud to start with, without gasping for breath at the end of every sentence. And then Jen taught me to actually read aloud, and when you get to the punctuation, pause and breathe to give the person who's listening more time. And I really recommend, just for fun, you watch the TV and notice how many people are nose breathing and how many people are mouth breathing. I have noticed that several people who have gone down with COVID-19 are actually gasping mouth breathers. Whether that's got any effect or not, I don't know. What you need to do is get motivation as to why I should change, because nobody does anything unless they have a motivation. And so it depends whether you're a person that wants to run away from something or run towards something. So let's just say you want to run away from something. I'll give you some of the things you want to run away from. You want to run away from overbreathing, dry mouth, teeth decay, anxiety, chronic stress, narrowing your airways, constriction of blood vessels, limiting ability to oxygenate, feeling unsafe. You can do that as well. Reducing blood flow to the heart and other organs. There's enough there to go, I really don't want to do this anymore. So if you move towards being a nose breather, what are you going to get? You're going to get more calmness. You're going to get improved strength that I'll tell you about in a minute. If you're an athlete, you might get better performance. You're definitely going to get better oxygenation. And for example, what happens, talking about shock, what happens when somebody startles you? You go, and hold your breath. Now, that's what, if you're in your in-breath, you're in your sympathetic nervous system, excuse me, which means you're in anxiety. What you want to do is, if you're going to hold your breath, you want to be in your parasympathetic. So if I just hold my breath when I breathe out, and it's difficult for me to talk at the same time as doing this, breathing in, breathing out. And I just held my breath on the out. There is something extraordinary that is really worth knowing about that, is that if you hold your breath on the out when you're in your parasympathetic, you're stronger. So if, for example, I pick up a bottle here, right? If I just pick it up like that, normally you saw my chest go up. That's in my sympathetic, right? So if I breathe properly, it's lighter. Most extraordinary. Everybody should know that. And what's the heaviest thing that you ever have to pick up? It's probably your own body weight. So when you get out of a chair, instead of jumping out the chair, go breathe in, breathe out 2 or 3 times, and then pause while you get out of the chair, and you'll find it's easier. It's absolute magic. So let's have a think. What else can you do? One of the things, one of the first motivators I found was I sat in an armchair for 2 hours, self-control here, not jumping around the place, and I did nose breathing. I focused on nose breathing, in through my nose, out through my nose, right down into my belly. And you know what? What did I feel like after an hour or two? So chilled out. I've never felt like it before. I think I have been a mouth breather for decades. I think I might have actually started when I was a child, but the operations I had later on certainly finished it off. So that's what's called a parasympathetic pause, is when you actually pause at the end of a breath. And athletes who are really fit can get longer and longer pauses. I talked to you about going to lifting a weight. If you, another really nice thing to do to relax is to blow on a candle, because you're actually blowing through your mouth, but it's a really, really gentle blow. And if you think about blowing bubbles, tube of bubbles I have on my desk because I use this with the kids. If you think about blowing those, you take a breath in and then you go. So you're taking a really steady, slow breath out. And it's not so important that you breathe out through your nose, but it's important that you breathe out really, really gently, and it's better through your nose because that limits the amount. So let me just give you a couple of things about the rhythm of breathing. If you're a heavy breather, you're probably moving really noisy. When you get excited, when you're exercising, you get bigger and bigger breaths because you think that's giving you more oxygenation for your limbs. It's not. If you breathe with your, if you run, and you need to start this off again really, really gently. If you breathe through your nose when you're running, you're doing more oxygenation into your limbs, which is actually what you want. When breathing is heavy, it's more intense, it's more erratic. We exhale too much carbon dioxide, and we leave our body gasping for oxygenating our muscles, organs, and our brain. And don't forget that one about hyperactive children. Good breathing is nice and slow, it's nice and gentle, and it's deep into your belly. And I have been practicing this for 9 months now, and I'm not completely corrected. I was probably been a mouth breather for at least 50 years. So it does take a bit of time. So be nice to yourself. You're breathing out slower than you're breathing in, and you can put pauses in to get yourself even healthier. The new breath is not triggered by the need for more oxygen, by the way. I should have said this earlier. It's triggered by the need for getting rid of the right level of carbon dioxide. And you have less random symptoms throughout your body. It's just amazing. And don't forget, carbon dioxide is the doorway to get oxygen into your muscles. So just looking at the time, I'm just going to give you one last thing to, the 5 topics of safer breathing. Everybody's into 5 topics at the moment. So it's shut your mouth unless you're eating or speaking. When I first started this, my husband looked at me and he said, "My God, I've spent years trying to get you to do that." So you can remember that joke. Breathe in and out through your nose. That's what it's for. Breathe gently, slowly and deeply into the base of your lungs and feel the relaxation wash over you. Increase your nitric oxide by humming on the out breath. If you meet me walking around the common, which I do I do 2.6 miles every morning round the common and round the village, I am humming all the way to increase my nitric oxide. And you can just please, would you avoid ingesting smoke and vaping? I've noticed since I've started doing this, my sense of smell is much greater, and so actually when a lorry passes me, I notice more than I used to about the pollution, as it were. So thank you all for joining me. I'm going to leave you there, and please tell your friends about this session. Thank you. Bye.